What if I told you there was a movie that took the themes and introspective elements of Evangelion and was able to package them into a more understandable way? That is what I would argue Hideaki Anno was able to do in his second live action work, Shiki Jitsu, or Ritual. Although Evangelion has many elements, giant robots, some light school hijinks, government conspiracies within conspiracies, at its heart, it's a psychological character study of a depressed boy who seeks all of his value in the approval of others and is too afraid to make decisions for himself. Many of us can see parts of ourselves in Shinji, Asuka, and Rei, and because of the nature of Evangelion, these tend to be the negative aspects of ourselves. Shinji's indecisiveness and instinct to blame others, Asuka's false bravado, and Rei's inability to think for herself. These negative traits are relatable and ones we seldom identify in ourselves, but can easily identify in others. Although it sometimes feels bad to relate to unlikable characters, whose negative traits are not only unvarnished but emphasized, it is also what makes Evangelion so powerful. We're able to explore the core themes of depression, social anxiety, and escapism through the lens of these characters, who we do not want to relate to, but we do. Because we do not want to be Shinji, but we understand Shinji. Evangelion is able to suggest a path forward where Shinji, and thus ourselves, could be better. In Evangelion, Shinji needed to embrace the possibility of change, of his ability to become better, and reject the comforting embrace of non-existence. In Thrice Upon a Time, he just needed to hash things out with his dad. Either way, I believe this is what makes Evangelion so relevant to this day. It's not about the giant robots or crazy subplots, but the characters and how we relate to them, and how they attempt to solve their problems. Shiki Jitsu is able to take many of the psychological and thematic elements that make Evangelion so great and put them into a simple narrative with fewer distractions and more clearly articulable conclusions. Hideaki Anno's Shiki Jitsu hits many of the same notes of Evangelion. While Shinji is often seen as a stand-in character for Hideaki Anno himself, the director in Shiki Jitsu is an obvious stand-in for Hideaki Anno. He leaves Tokyo to go back to his hometown of Ube, Anno's hometown, which is shown at the end of Thrice Upon a Time, in order to shoot his film. He is burned out making animated films and wants to make a live-action movie in order to make something closer to reality. He is indecisive and unable to communicate effectively, so he ends up trying to express himself through images. The other main character, on the other hand, is a stand-in for Ayako Fujitani, who wrote the novel the movie is based on, plays herself, and happens to be Steven Seagal's daughter. She has locked herself completely away from reality due to her tragic past that she is unwilling to acknowledge and lives in an abandoned office building which she has meticulously decorated. These two live together, and their relationship grows in many ways. Unlike in Evangelion, where people's social anxiety and tendency to cause harm when they become closer, i.e., the hedgehog dilemma, causes distance between people, in Shiki Jitsu, it is a tendency to reject reality itself that leads to distance between the two characters. The director notes that he has created an idealized image of the woman in his head. The idealized image is not reality, but an escapist fantasy. When the fantasy dies down, he gets bored and starts pulling away. He was unable to connect in a meaningful way at that moment because he was too lost in the fantasy. This fantasy is shown by shifts from a cinematic 16:9 ratio at moments of more objective reality to shifts to 4:3 and less color corrected and edited footage when a less varnished scene is shown, which usually happens when one of the characters is filming, but there are definitely exceptions. The fantasy is also stylized as a shift to animations and surrealist scenes when the mind of the woman becomes too dissonant from the reality she is unable to face. All these experiences are still varying degrees of escapism. The objective cinematic camera is obviously showing a movie, and the fact that the 4:3 view does away with the editing tricks that makes the color pop draws attention to the fact that the movie unfolding before us is not reality. The 4:3 shots serve as the most realistic shots, as they are generally first person and lack much of the editing in the cinematic shots, but they tend to only appear at happy times, which juxtaposes to the overall tone and mental state of the characters. The animations and surrealist scenes are the most real reflections of the emotional state of the characters, but they are also the most unbelievable to the audience, as they are the furthest from our reality. Anno's ability to utilize the medium of film in a way to convey distinct versions of reality through changes to the camera and from inserting animations into his work, mirrors both End of Evangelion and Thrice Upon a Time's usage of live-action footage to get across their anti-escapist messages. Rather than using animation to show us abstract emotions like in Shiki Jitsu, Anno shows the audience watching a movie in the theater mirroring the states of the audience watching End of Evangelion, or footage of Anno's actual hometown in Thrice Upon a Time. In Shiki Jitsu, the shift in form from live action to animation is similarly jarring, and the viewer is taken outside of the spectacle for a moment and is encouraged to recognize the film for what it is, a film. Anno is able to effectively break down the fourth wall and cause introspection in the viewer. The introspection encouraged by both Evangelion and Shiki Jitsu are what makes these works stick in the viewer's head for years. To some extent, we see negative versions of ourselves in these characters and are asked to introspect and do better. Most media is not brave enough to do this. We are supposed to feel good when we watch TV or a movie. We are supposed to be entertained. Rarely is entertainment willing to try and make us feel bad about ourselves, but Shiki Jitsu is one of the rare works that does, and it is more memorable and impactful for it. Although the thematic similarities are the most important, fans of Hideaki Anno's direction and visual style will not be disappointed. Although the film has less experimental camera angles than Love and Pop, the movie is visually stunning in a surrealist way that helps establish an aura of uneasiness and discomfort that feels akin to a David Lynch film. Anno utilizes some of his signature style to establish the emotional states of scenes through the camera angle alone. He is able to show a distance between characters through the use of lens effects. He is able to elicit feelings of voyeurism in the audience through long-distance shots. The woman's room is one of the most meticulously designed rooms in all of cinema. It is brimming with thresholds, walls, items of symbolic importance, and a color design that reflects the mental state of the woman. The color saturation is also turned up, which makes the transition to less edited scenes more jarring, cementing the themes of escapism and aiding in the fourth wall breaks. Overall, Shiki Jitsu takes many of the great thematic and stylistic themes of Evangelion and translates them into a live-action setting effectively. Although Shiki Jitsu is obviously shorter than Evangelion, Anno is able to dig in thematically in a more focused narrative. I believe Shiki Jitsu stands proudly among Evangelion, End of Evangelion, and Thrice Upon a Time as Anno's top-tier masterpieces. If you'd like a more in-depth analysis of escapism in Shiki Jitsu, please check the video in the card. Thank you.